I'm Beck and welcome to my June wrap-up. I'm going to talk about 7 books. 4 I finished, 3 I DNF'd, so we had some mixed results, but at the beginning of the month I found 2 books that I really enjoyed, and I'll link all relevant videos and reading vlogs down below for you so you can go and check those out. But the first book that I read and finished in June is The Incandescent, and this is a dark academia book. So in this case it is set at a boarding school and we're following a teacher of these students, and these students are learning about demonology. They've also got an aptitude for magic, which is why they're attending this school, but demons across the other side of the veil can sense this aptitude and they come across and obviously do not great things. So the students are learning ways in order to stop that from happening, and at the beginning of the story there is what's called a demon incursion with a very high level demon at this school that Dr. Walden has to fight off with help from Laura, who is a knight, and she's also a guard at the school as well. And we mainly follow Dr. Walden, and she is in her late 30s. She's a teacher and not the head of the school, but she's quite high up enough to have 6 students of her own who are about to graduate, and she's in charge of their program. She's also in charge of the demonology part of the program because that's what her PhD specialized in, and I just really enjoyed reading this book. I had a great time with it, and I think that's because we really got a deep character study of Dr. Walden. I might have said it in vlogs before because it sounds familiar now that I'm about to say it, but we got an insight into her identity because not only is it told through her perspective, but she wears different kind of hats depending on the context that she's in. So she might be Dr. Walden if she's liaising with teachers, for example. She might be Dr. Walden if she's talking to her students and mentoring them, but in other situations she might be Sapphy Walden, and Sapphire is her name, so she uses Sapphy when she's in personal situations. And I just liked that this was also representative of a bisexual character who is a bit older, because she has a relationship with a man and a woman in this book, and I just really liked the whole package, honestly. At the end it felt like it did a bit of a shift and I lost track of it or thread of it for like a split second, but then it came back into focus again. So I gave it 4 stars and I had a great time with it, and I think it was honestly a solid dark academia book. I've had some real disappointing ones lately, and this one is a standout for me. This one is another book that I really enjoyed this month, and I'll link my reading vlog for you because I had a great time, and this is The Raven Scholar. Now, you would not expect me to have read such a chunky fantasy book because lately it feels like I've been in such a reading slump and I can't get myself out of it. I keep finding like okay books, or I find books that I just don't like the style of and I DNF, which has happened quite a few times lately, but this one was excellent. The book starts off with one character as almost like a prelude, and then it jumps into our main character who is Nima, and she is part of the Crows. There are different rivaling monasteries, and they are the Fox, Raven, Tiger, Ox, Bear, Monkey and Hound, and then there's an 8th one that's the Dragon Proxy. Obviously the Crows are part of this as well, and they are all being brought together as representatives of each place because the Emperor has now served 24 years and there is a new like election happening, and that election is in the form of a trial. So all of these contenders have to compete in order to become the next Emperor. There is also a moment at the beginning of the story though where one of the contenders is murdered, and now Nima is tasked with not only filling this contender's place but also trying to solve her murder. So there is the trial happening, there is a lot of political conspiracy going on, and also one of the other contenders named Cain, he is Nima's old flame. So at the beginning of the story she has to choose between orders written by the Emperor to write up an order of exile for this character that we were introduced to in the prelude, or going with Cain and escaping from the island. And she chooses to stay and hopefully garner some reputation for her career by filling out this exile, but it backfires and she's still pretty much ignored by society. So she's like, I do regret my choices, I'm really lonely, but what other choice do I have now than to carry on? Because her emperor is almost at the end of his reign anyway. And yeah, Cain comes back. There is a subplot of a romance. There is definitely some tension in here. And I just liked how chaotic Cain was as well. He was very much the chaotic energy to Nima's stabilizing force. So not only did I really enjoy and understand all of the trial complexities and felt like they were well grounded too, I also really liked the political intrigue, the side characters that were set up, because it's really hard to maintain different side characters while you're trying to do so much with the trial and with politics and just establishing everything in the world, and I really liked all of that. One trope I don't particularly enjoy just generally across any book is gods being sentient, and that very much happened up and down throughout this story, so it was something that took my enjoyment a little bit, but I think the way that this executed that trope, it actually pulled it off and it made me not dislike it. So I have a lot of respect for this book for that reason. I also gave it 4 stars and I had a great time with it. So I'm hoping that there's a sequel because there's nothing listed online that I can find. So I really want to read more of it. This next one I should have known that I wasn't going to enjoy because it has been quite highly marketed as a romantasy, and I don't tend to get along with popular romantasy titles, unfortunately. Fourth Wing was like the only outlier, and unfortunately I've just hated everything else. And the book I'm talking about is The Games Gods Play, and our main character Lyra is 23. She's helping to run this particular crew from a thieving den, and they're pulling off a heist on the night of a festival for the gods, and she decides that night, after being insulted by some random guy as part of the crew, she's like, this is my final straw. Like, I've had this curse on me my whole life and I've been cursed by Zeus, but now I'm angry about it. I'm going to go cry, and then I'm going to go and desecrate Zeus's temple, and damn the consequences. So while she's going off to firstly abandon the thieving crew that she's with, and then secondly desecrate a temple, she gets grabbed by somebody who she doesn't know. And instead of reacting the way you would expect someone to react when they are grabbed by some stranger in the dark, she doesn't panic. She starts flirting with him, and it's actually Hades, and he's preventing her from causing a kerfuffle with Zeus. And I didn't even get more than 13 pages into this, and I just found the premise completely ridiculous. Granted, I can understand if you read these types of stories a lot, you can probably see from a mile away that Hades is going to be the love interest, and to be fair, I saw that too, but it's just not something that's convincing to me, and I found Lyra just completely unimaginative and frustrating. I like a main character who has a bit of solidarity, foundation, and backbone, and this character just didn't have any. It's like she was a child and she's 23, and I'm just not interested in that damsel or helplessness. Actually, it's an insult to damsels. She wasn't even a damsel. She was just a brat throwing a tantrum who got grabbed by someone to stop her. So this was unfortunately a story that I thought might be an Olympian retelling of the gods with a trial that sounded epic, but it was not epic in the slightest, and I put it down very, very quickly. Then in desperation to hopefully not put down my next read, which didn't work unfortunately, I tried a library book, and that is A Taste of Gold and Iron. So I listened to 20% of this audiobook, and it follows Evermere and Cadu, and Cadu is a prince. His sister is the Sultan, so she has ruling power, and at the beginning of the story he accidentally misleads his lover Tuduk, and Tuduk starts to develop politically a way to carve out political space for Cadu, and in doing this Cadu starts to panic because he's got really strong anxiety, and he doesn't really address it or nip it in the bud. He lets Tuduk kind of run with it a bit, and because of him not taking control of the situation, some soldiers are attacked with him, like their retinue is attacked, and a few lives are lost. And then to call him on his behavior later, his sister, instead of stripping him of his title and stripping Tuduk of his title, she tries to rearrange things so that they're not completely dismissed from court. And in doing that, she hires a bodyguard, Evermere, to come and look over Cadu so he doesn't do anything like this again. So this is a male-male bodyguard romance with political intrigue at the heart of the story. And I liked it enough, but I don't know why it just wasn't gripping me. It felt like there was no spark to it for me personally. I did like the way that the characters were set up. I liked that it was almost not rivals or enemies, but Cadu and Evermere were not friendly to start with because they didn't have that respect yet. And Cadu also didn't want to, show the world or show Evermere really that he has such strong anxiety attacks. And so when he's having another one, he brings Tuduk over and they disappear into his room. Obviously things escalate because they have been lovers, but it just makes Evermere not respect him even more. And I liked the dynamics that were being set up. I also liked the loose magic that we got very briefly introduced to that I'm assuming is developed later, because by holding and touching metal, it's like Cadu could taste it. So that's probably why it's called A Taste of Gold and Iron. But beyond that, I was just not really invested emotionally, even though they were generally interesting. Like if you sat down and described that to me, I would go, oh, this is a book that I want to read. But in this case, it was just not interesting enough. So I DNF'd it at 20%, which is really unfortunate. I also DNF'd a series this month, but I finished this volume because I wanted to make sure that that was my choice. And that is Ragnar Crimson Volume 4. And after the cliffhanger at the end of book 3, I was really excited to start this one. But then more than half of the volume opened with these characters that we didn't know or care about really. They were the villains, they were monologuing. There was the other character, not Ragnar, the other character Crimson, who was, plotting and trying to put machinations in place that were like very far down the track, but you didn't really have any foundational context for those things at that present moment. And so it all just felt really convoluted. In amongst all that as well, there were consistent flashbacks and they took away from the story rather than adding to it. So I ended up skimming a lot because I just was not interested. And then at the end of the book, it introduced this completely ridiculous potential love interest. Whether it goes down that path or not, I don't care, because that was like the cherry on top of me going, no, putting this series down is the correct choice now. I want to say that my rating is 2 stars because 1 star feels too mean, but I'm honestly so disappointed. Maybe I'll change it in the future to a 1 star, but at the moment it's 2 just because I feel a bit charitable and I'm mourning the loss of this series at the moment. But I'm also so relieved because I borrowed all of these manga volumes from my library instead of purchasing them physically. Imagine if I'd bought all of these physically and then got to volume 4 and been like, oh, but I'd hate it though. Like I don't like it. What a waste of money. I'm so lucky that I tried these through my library first. So unfortunately, 2 stars, volume 4, DNF. I'm done now. So after DNFing Taste of Golden Iron and then reading Ragnar Crimson and just being completely disillusioned by my enjoyment of that series as well, I decided to start a book that has been on my TBR for a little bit, and that is King and Queen. And it's a very short male romance audiobook, but it also features ridiculously dinosaur shapeshifters. So it does have that urban fantasy element going on, which I really quite enjoy. And in this one, we follow Royal and Blaze. And Royal is a pansexual IT guy, and he works for the Relic crew, which we are introduced to along the way of the series. This is book 3. The Relic crew are like the be all and end all. They're the foundation, and they run operations in order to save and preserve fossils and history, because obviously they're dinosaur shapeshifters, so they want to preserve their own history and then share that with the world. And there are a series of robberies that Royal is aware of that he ends up going on a wild goose chase to find. Before that happens though, he realizes with the other Relic crew that there may be another potential shapeshifter that is, coming out of the earth and needs help transitioning into being a human properly. And so he's sent because he's the easiest one to communicate with in order to bring this person back into the fold and make them understand society as present day, because they would have been asleep for millennia. At the start of this book, Royal is on his way to where this new shapeshifter is going to appear, and he goes into a club and has like a one-night fling with this guy named Blaze. And Blaze is our other side character, and he also has an interest in fossils, but he's got a social media angle because he's in marketing, and he's just packed up his job, he's on the road, and they have a fling, and then the next day they're both at the same site for this particular fossil. And then at nighttime, Blaze captures some footage of these shapeshifters going crazy with each other. And from there, he ends up confessing that to Royal, and then they team up together and away we go. This one was honestly spicy and fun, but I just didn't like it as much as the others. I gave it a 3.5 stars, I think. I might lower it to a 3, but either way, it's 3.5 stars. It was enjoyable. It was very quick because the audiobooks are like 6 hours or less. So I listened to it a few times while I was going on walks, and that just smashed it out for me. So it was a quick win for the month of June for me, which I really needed, and I liked it, but it wasn't anything that I'm going to be particularly focused on, or it's not particularly memorable to me either, but it was enjoyable at the time. The next book I grabbed off my to be read cart, and that is Blood of the Old Kings. And this is a fantasy book with multiple perspectives. So firstly, we have Lauren, and at the beginning, she's making a pact with a dragon in a volcano. Both of them want vengeance against the Empire for the oppression of the people of Ireland. And Lauren sacrifices an eye, and then the dragon cuts off a tooth, and that becomes her sword, and it's like a flaming sword. She's imbued with some dragon magic, and she is determined to carve a path to become the next king of Ireland. We've also got Kane, who is fairly nondescript and he's trying to solve the murder of one of his friends. Also, he is a person of Ireland and he's very much kept that quiet, because if you talk about it too much or make a big deal of it, then you don't have great things happen to you. And then we've got Ariane, who is a student at the Division of Sorcery. However, she has a voice in her head, and this voice is from a power generator, which is quite unusual because sorcerers' bodies are used as power generators. It's like a necromancy magic in order to power society in various ways, and this power generator is still like lucid and sentient, and he directs her to do a few things, and then she runs away and escapes from the school because she's like, I don't want to spend my life learning magic just for this empire to use me as a power generator when I die. So she's trying to escape that system. She runs into Kane and he helps her prepare to run away. So there is a few moving parts in this and all of them sound interesting. But honestly, when I was reading this, I got 188 pages in, which is the equivalent to 51%. I just found that I was not interested in the story or characters, and it felt like they were not emotionally dynamic enough for me to get invested in them. I'm not really sure why. I just found that I was reading it and then tuning out a lot and then rereading things and going, wait, I should be focusing. For a book that you're enjoying, you don't have to force yourself to focus. So unfortunately, that's why I put this one down. And I'm really disappointed that I didn't like it, because I thought necromancy and magic and dragons would be very much on the forefront as well. And it just seemed like they were kind of the peripheral premise, and then the characters were doing what they were. And I was just not invested, which was very disappointing. And I am filming this a little bit early towards the end of June, but I'm also doing a reading vlog. So I've got like 2 or 3 more books that I wanted to talk about in this video, but I think because I haven't finished them, I'll just put them in that vlog instead, and I'll link it below for you so you can go and check it out. So that is all of the books that I have read or DNF'd during the month of June, and I really wish I had some more successes. Very happy with the first 2 books on this video though, so thank goodness that they came in clutch for me when I really needed a good book to read. But that is all for this video. Let me know if you had any 5 stars during the month of June, because I desperately need some, so I might take your recommendations to heart. But again, thank you for watching. I'll come chat to you down below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.